Senator Ayotte.
Just thinking about the milk the refrigerator could tell me to have with my super cookie. So I wanted to follow up on a couple different things. You know, as we look at something that's been a consistent challenge for us, and that's data breaches, and as we see more homogeneity in the consolidation of data, I think this becomes a bigger issue. And this is something that we have had numerous discussions on legislating on. And I'll give you an example. Recently, the big Anthem breach, that's 22% of my state got hit by that. 80 million people in the country got hit. And so wanted to hear, I think probably best to direct it to Mr. Davis and Mr. Thier about what your thoughts are and what we should be doing on data breach legislation. I certainly want to make sure we don't do things that hurt innovation and are thwart new technologies, but this seems to be a repetitive issue that we need to address. Your thoughts?
Well, I'll start. Thank you for the question. You know, I certainly, from an Intel perspective, we think you have to design security into these implementations from the beginning, not only on the endpoint device, but throughout that end-to-end implementation. There are multiple levels of security in terms of how the device, you know, powers up and behaves, you know, when it's first powered, the kinds of applications it's allowed to run when it begins to run applications, and the ability to limit the types of things that can be launched on that particular device at any point in time, and then be able to manage that data through the network such that the information they are receiving from that data is trusted information. You're getting what you would expect to be getting out of that device. At the same time, I think, you know, we have to be a bit careful in terms of how we create legislation or policy around that in terms of enabling the industry to innovate as well. So I think certainly as we talk to customers, as we talk to others in the industry, security is the #1 concern, and we believe we can build that into the technologies that these products are being developed around.
Well, Senator, many states already pursue data breach notification requirements, and there's a case to be made for it. But I would just remind the committee that you already have many other legal enforcement mechanisms to deal with these things. The Federal Trade Commission has gone after many companies who've had breaches like this. You have state attorneys general who've been very active on this front in consumer.
So I was a state AG, and I pursued some of these cases. And you know, now sitting in with this hat on in the U.S. Senate, what are your thoughts on a national standard in terms of notification?
Yeah, eventually I think we're probably going to get there. I think there's probably a case to be made for some uniformity in this case because many states are pursuing it or others don't have any at all.
Appreciate it. I also wanted to follow up with you. You talked about the ability under the FTC to determine unfair and deceptive practices in this realm, so that the FTC is pursuing those cases. But if you look at it from the perspective of innovation and having a larger plan in terms of the Internet of Things, isn't one of the challenges we face that people don't really fully understand? There's not been a full definition under Section 5 of what is an unfair and deceptive practice, and so therefore that lack of certainty to businesses can create some ambiguity about what's acceptable and what's not. So I wanted to get everyone's thoughts on that.
I think that's a fair point, Senator, but I would also say that this is an issue we've had for us for many decades. Unfair and deceptive practices go back over a century, and so we're going to continue to see the evolution of that standard. But you're right, we have to be careful that it's not overzealously enforced.
Do you think that the FTC needs to provide further guidance on what they believe is unfair and deceptive under Section 5?
I think that's evolving out of the body of decisions that they've been handing down on data security and privacy.
Mr. Davis, I was very curious in your testimony. You talked about what other countries are doing to really look at making sure the infrastructure is there, national Internet of Things plans. So what is it would you like to see us do here in a way that would be a productive role for Congress and not one that thwarts innovation?
Well, certainly one of the recommendations that we're making is that we support public-private partnerships so that we go out and identify areas in, say, transportation, in manufacturing, in some of these industrial areas where we can innovate, we can spur these industries to go implement new technologies and drive the productivity, services, and new product benefits. So certainly public-private partnerships are a key area that we're recommending.
And Mr. Abbott, from the financing end, what are your thoughts? You see it, you're the ones allowing for investment, looking at new companies. What's your thought on that?
Well, we see
I think there needs to be more coordination, I think, through the public and the private sector, especially on these issues. We're obviously very, very focused on looking at how we can help these early-stage companies, much smaller than Intel, not be stifled, and so they can actually kind of grow and expand.
Great. Thank you all.